on the Rwanda bill. The votes will be later in the day, and then, depending on whether the bill stays intact as it is, whether or not any of those amendments are passed, we will be looking, most likely, not 100%, that there will be a vote on the bill itself. The Safety of Rwanda bill, of course, brought in the wake of that Supreme Court judgment saying they could not confirm that Rwanda was a safe place for Channel migrant asylum seekers to be sent to be processed, and indeed to stay if they were granted asylum for the UK. That vote will be later on tonight. We'll be talking more about that. Delighted to say that joining me still in the studio is former Royal Navy and NATO Commander Rear Admiral Dr. Chris Parry, CBE. I have to say, Chris, the suggestions that you've made about how you think we should deal with the Channel migrant crisis, and indeed William in Sussex, who got in touch with his suggestion, clearly a military man. I didn't understand half the acronyms he was saying. I had to have a translation. Big boat, a big boat not under the British flag, picking people up and basically taking them somewhere else. I mean, people are cheering that on, certainly in the social media posts that I've seen. Do you think that, A, the Rwanda bill, as it stands, or amended, after the Commons, after the House of Lords, where we know there'll be a huge bunch of virtue signalling, lefty do-goodies, even on the Tory benches, trying to stop it from actually happening. If any version of the Rwanda bill gets through Parliament and becomes law, do you think there is a snowball's chance in hell of any Channel migrant arriving in this country ever being sent to Rwanda?
Well, I think there'll be a few token ones, but is it going to deal with the issue? I don't think so.
Will it deter many thousands of others from coming?
I don't think so, no.
Your big plan, which you've sent to Number 10, for those who are just tuning in, you said this to Number 10 over the 6 years a number of times via
various MPs.
MPs. You've just had a complete shrug. Just in a few sentences, what is your plan? What do you think, as a military man who does detail and outcomes, and when things go wrong or aren't done, people die when you get things wrong in your job, so perhaps you might be someone worth listening to by the government. What's your plan?
My plan basically hinges on not actually taking people to the United Kingdom. You keep them offshore, you take them to a place of safety, you process them offshore, and you do it as part of a humanitarian crisis, which has to be declared. I mean, migration all over the world is becoming absolutely critical for most countries and what's happening at sea. And if you turn up and you're taken to one of these offshore processing centres, if you fail that, you go straight to Rwanda. You don't pass go, you don't collect £200. And if you qualify, then you're taken to the United Kingdom. It's as simple as that. The critical point here, Julia, is everybody says, oh, you have to be landed if you're in distress at sea. That's not true.
Yeah. We spoke to an immigration lawyer, Evan Sampson, about that.
You have to be taken to a place of safety. And I think there are more ways of doing this than are being envisaged. There's a lack of imagination. There's a lack of political courage.
Where does that come from, the lack of political courage? Because, I mean, for the love of God, no politician in this country, the furthest left loony Corbynista to the furthest right Tory MP, could be under any illusions that this is something that the British people care about. Labour voters care about it, Tory voters care about it, a lot of Lib Dem voters who pretend they're all nicey-nice at their dinner parties and on their social media, they also care about it. Anyone who thinks it's a good idea to have tens and tens of thousands of illegal migrants coming over to this country, often without documentation, mostly young men, we have no idea who they are, what their intentions are, coming to this country, hundreds of thousands languishing on this sort of long wait to be processed. I mean, they're insane if they think that's a good idea. Any country wants it. The whole of Europe is basically saying, oh, we're waking up to this problem. It's not just Italy and Greece who realise what a problem it is. Sweden, Netherlands, the nice liberal countries have woken up to realise what an absolute disaster this mass immigration has been, even the legal immigration has been for their countries and their economy and their culture and their safety and the like. They've woken up to this. America, one of the main reasons, and we're going to come on to Donald Trump in a second, one of the main reasons Donald Trump appeals is this idea, build the wall, close the border, talk about this stuff. And I can see why he's got an appeal on this. How is it there isn't the political will and the real courage from either Sunak, certainly nothing from Keir Starmer or Ed Davey or the SNP to deal with this issue? Well, what are they missing that everyone else can see?
I'm afraid to say, Julia, we have a political class that thinks it knows better than the British people.
Yeah.
How many times have we seen through COVID, through Brexit, everything else, we're being told, if you ask people in this country whether they supported capital punishment,
yeah,
I think it'd be very interesting what you.
Oh no,
what
but
you
we
got.
know that there is a majority in support of
but-
and partly that was because of the deal that it was supposed to mean if you didn't get capital punishment, it was life that meant life. And when we see people come out of jail after 12 years, people, funnily enough, have a problem with it.
And I'm afraid to say there is what I would call liberal overreach at the moment. That's what I would call it in this country. And we've got a situation where the needs and desires of the people are taking second place. That would be my view. Back in 2006, I was asked what the top 5 threats to Europe were going to be while I was still in the Navy. And publicly in Whitehall, I said the top 5 threats will be uncontrolled migration from North Africa and the Middle East, a returning Russia, a rising China, 20,000 unallocated jihadists, which became Islamic State, and the collapse of the Western middle class. And for that,
goodness me!
And for that, I got an interview with the Secretary of State, who told me I was alarmist.
Which Secretary of State? Defence?
I'm not going to say.
No, but the Defence Secretary.
Yeah. And also all my chain of command said, you're racist, you're alarmist. And I said, but that's the job you pay me for.
Not to be racist, but to tell you the truth.
I'm supposed to talk truth to power.
But this is it. I mean, I'm thinking about things that I was raising years ago as a political editor, and these are still issues. I mean, and the same language is still being used. You're still called a racist, a xenophobe, a bigot, heartless, nasty, everything for raising these issues. But the British public have spoken again and again. They've told people, not just in polls and actual votes in the elections, what they think should happen. My big fear is that if there isn't action on this and people can see what's happening in their own eyes in their local communities, that actually we are going to, and we've not done it ever in this country, and thank goodness, because we aren't a nasty racist country. No. We are a nice country and very welcoming and very open to people, and not just Ukrainians because they're white, because we just don't have a history of this. Is that the people are going to start turning to a worse extreme, as you see in pretty much every country in Europe: Germany, Austria, Italy, France, Sweden, the Netherlands. We are seeing an awful lot of growth of right-wing parties, some of which have perfectly valid points in terms of tackling mass immigration, and some of which are very nasty racist parties. Now you need to separate the two, but nevertheless, I don't want us to go down a route where the mainstream parties are just totally ignoring what we want. But I think that is where we are.
Yeah,
I think that's where you see Reform UK, again, not a racist party, but a party that is actually talking about these issues and saying what they do.
I mean, I think the real problem we've got, Julia, is that people think that the last 70 years has been normality. It's actually been an aberration. We've been very lucky. I'm always fond of comparing some of the issues we've got at the moment with the end of the Roman Empire, which was subject to serious outside shock by vast populations moving in too short a time. It just overwhelmed every aspect of Roman life.
It's not just the economy, and it's not just about safety. And there is, I mean, anyone who thinks that having vast numbers of people from cultures, I've got Ofcommed on this before, they want it, but the stats are really, really clear in every country that has seen mass migration, where you see the cities, the enclaves where you've seen this. And in no way am I saying immigrants responsible for crime. This mass uncontrolled immigration, and particularly illegal
in a short time,
has led to ghettos and has led to a rise in crime, particularly violent crime and sex crimes committed by those groups, where there is a record kept in Austria, in France, in Sweden, in Germany. This has been registered. These are official statistics. But you don't see that all over the newspaper because it makes everyone uncomfortable. But you're talking about, in lots of cases, it's mostly men, young men. Again, who commits most crime in any society? White, black, Asian, it's young men. But also they are coming from a culture, many of them are coming from cultures in North Africa, in the Middle East, which have a very different attitude to, for instance, women's rights, sexuality, women's sexuality, gay people, and to everyone pretending that isn't the case is living in Count Cuckoo land.
I mean, it's very interesting, Julia. If you look back to the 19th century, it would have taken somebody 2 months to get to this country from, say, Pakistan or Afghanistan or somewhere like that. It's 8 hours away. So you're taking people from a pre-modern society and putting them into a postmodern society and expecting them to adapt straight away.
What do you expect? Exactly.
What do you expect?
Yeah, and again, I mean, some countries, like Sweden and I think the Netherlands, have actually given lessons. They're literally giving lessons, telling people, no, you're not allowed to, just because a woman isn't wearing completely shrouded clothes, you're not allowed to touch her. I mean, actually literally having to teach young men about, because the values they've been brought up, it's not their fault in that sense in terms of what they've been taught in their home countries. And again, I'm probably going to get complaints about this, but we need to be saying it.
We need to have the conversation.
We need to have a conversation about it and understanding the cultural differences that different countries and different societies have. I mean, reality check, everybody.